Hello everyone, this is Maliha Bas and we are back again with another exciting session. And this time we have Hadiqa Maqsood, and she is a Fulbright scholar from University of Arizona, and currently she is pursuing her PhD degree. And we are glad that she's here with us, and we'll be asking her questions that you guys have sent us through your messages. So hello Hadiqa, how are you?
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm good. How are you guys doing?
I'm good, alhamdulillah, and even आपके जो friends and fans हैं यहाँ पे वो भी बहुत अच्छे होंगे. हदीका, हम क्वेश्चन स्टार्ट करते हैं क्योंकि ये हमारा
Sure.
30 मिनट्स का 30 to 35 मिनट का सेशन है. तो हम आपसे पहले सवाल
Okay.
पूछते हैं कि हदीका, रिसर्च की ऑडियंस क्या होती है? लाइक इफेक्टिव ऑडियंस क्या है हमारे पास रिसर्च की? क्या हम इंडस्ट्री के लिए रिसर्च कर रहे होते हैं या हम किसी इंस्टीट्यूट के लिए कर रहे हैं? क्या ऑडियंस क्या होती है जब रिसर्च करते वक्त हमें क्या देखना चाहिए?
So, research basically, you're asking if it's for the industry or academia or what. Research, to understand research kiske liye, we need to understand why research is important. The reason and the purpose of doing a research is that you need to be solving a problem. You need to be linking it with the real world. It should be a problem solving approach. Research should be adding to the existing knowledge. For example, since this is a climate change platform, so if I give the same example, for example, we have to think about, is there a temporal or spatial change in temperature or solar radiation? For example, पिछले 30 years में are we seeing a change in Pakistan? Or are we seeing a change between two different countries? So once we work on that portion, this is adding the knowledge. So when you add the knowledge, when you get the results out of this, then that could be used in academia, and it could also be used in industry. For example, there are two basic types of research. One is called basic research, and the other is called applied research. So basic research is just addition of the knowledge, and when you talk about applied research, that means that you have immediate benefit. Your work has immediate benefit to the society. So there is a project which is ready for the implementation. This is the basic difference. So it could be used for industry, it could be used for academia, it could be used for the student to increase the learning curve of him or herself. And it just, the way to approach both types is different, but it's a vast approach in whichever way you want to do the research.
Okay, यानी कि आप ये कहना चाह रही हैं कि जो स्टेप्स हैं जो इन्वॉल्व हैं रिसर्च करने में फॉर एकेडेमिया और फॉर इंडस्ट्री वो सेम होते हैं. तो वो क्या बेसिक एसेंशियल्स हैं जो रिसर्च पेपर लिखते वक्त, या बेसिक स्टेप्स कौन से हैं जो हम फॉलो करें कोई रिसर्च पेपर लिखते वक्त?
So research करने के लिए we have two components. First step is doing the research itself, and the second is to publish it so that the others can have a look at it and others can benefit from the work you have done. So it's doing the research and it's writing about it, and they all come together in a sequence. So I can go through steps जो involve होते हैं to do a research project. So first thing is, and this is for the students जो अभी start कर रहे हैं या वो जो whoever is in the middle of their research project. So the first step to start a research or to start a project is to start with a proposal. And proposal is the skeleton of your research paper. Okay, so you need to have an idea, and then from that idea you develop a strategic plan. Now that strategic plan will have an outline of the research, and then you also need to mention some expected results. So for those who are in university, once you have an idea or you know the area that you're interested in, you need to find a professor or a mentor who has some expertise and who can guide you all the way through. And then once you have prepared the basic outline of what you want to do, then comes the detail of how to initiate the proposal or in the long run, the project itself. So the first step is that we need to have a problem statement. We need to just imagine a research paper that you need to develop. The first thing would be, what is the outline? What is the problem statement that you are considering? Giving the same example जो मैंने अभी पहले दी थी in terms of climate change. Let's say my problem statement is that there is a need to monitor and control the temperature for urban areas, right? Now, how you would start it? You would start with a very broad question. Just have a broad question on how to do it. Take it, and then once you would keep on going in the research process, you would specify, make it more specific, all those research questions, and I'll talk about it in the next step. But coming to it further about the problem statement, from problem statement comes your objectives. And there are two basic type of objectives. One is called the main objective, and then there are specific objectives. There is always a main objective in a research, but there can or cannot be the specific objectives. Main objective would be, let's take the same example. Main objective would be to determine the temporal change in weather conditions, right? And now you can have a specific objective where you're doing further details or mentioning about, are you comparing temperature with solar radiation? Now that would be a specific aim or specific objectives, right? And so main objective is just one objective, and specific objectives you can have either 2 or 3, but usually not more than 4. Try not to make it a full paragraph, just have it in bullet points. So once you are done and you have your objectives ready, then you go on to, one more thing. Do make sure your objectives are doable in time. Let's say if you have a year long to do your research, but you have too ambitious of an objective, it would be struggle for you to finish it. So just try to make it a very feasible one within that time frame that you have to do the research. I had the same problems, so I'm telling you from my own experience. Then comes literature review. So that's one thing which gives you the idea and the knowledge about what is existing already on the topic that you have to work on. So literature review, just to tell you more about it, is just reading. It's reading about the existing work of your research, and then writing about it. So I will give you a very good tip, and that is, once you read a paper, immediately write a summary of that, because over the period of time, you would read so many papers that you will lose track of what was mentioned in the previous one. So keep on reading and writing about it. And why you should do literature review is you develop vocabulary for your own subject area. So, every area has some of the technical terms. And to know that, you need to read about it, and then the papers would have the vocabulary in it. So it will develop your vocabulary. Then you would also pick and identify the methods that are used. Now, every research paper would either have similar or different methods. So just try to understand what one paper has done, what the other person has done, and then you accommodate whichever method is suitable for you or is doable in your case. Then literature review also helps you to refine your broad question. Like I mentioned, to get to a problem statement or an objective, you need to start with a broader question, and then you narrow it down. So literature review also helps you with that. And
हदीका यहाँ पे क्वेश्चन है जो हमसे स्टूडेंट्स ने बहुत ज्यादा पूछा. उनका क्वेश्चन ये है कि लिटरेचर रिव्यू में कितने पेपर्स को आप रीड करें. फॉर इंस्टेंस, मैं कोई 30 पेपर्स रीड करूं, मैं 20 करूं, या 10 भी सफिशिएंट होंगे?
Okay, this is a very relative answer because let's say there is a study जिसमें काम ही नहीं हुआ इतना, and there are only 10 papers available, right? So you would mention those 10. But let's say there is some topic which has been there for a very long time, or उसके अंदर काफी study हुई है. The best thing is to start with the most recent year work. So start with what has been done in 2020, in 2019, and then go back and back and back. And I think for a thesis level, 20 to 30 are good. But when you are writing a research paper for a publication, because then you are limited to number of pages based on the
Hmm.
journal. So then you look at the important ones, and then you can skim through those that are not too relevant and not too specific. And for that, I think 8 to 10 are good. So it really depends what's your end product. Is it a publication, or is it a dissertation or a thesis? For dissertation, of course, it's more elaborated. So I would suggest 20 to 30, and then for the research paper, 8 to 10. Yeah.
एक हमारे पास एक और इंटरेस्टिंग क्वेश्चन था। स्टूडेंट्स का कहना है कि अगर हम कोई ऐसे टॉपिक पे रिसर्च करना चाह रहे हैं जिस पे ऑलरेडी रिसर्च नहीं हुई है, तो क्या तब भी लिटरेचर रिव्यू नेसेसरी है?
There will always be something you can relate to. For example, even on my PhD topic, जो मैं crop use कर रही हूँ, उस पे इतनी research हुई नहीं है. It's like now the market is growing for that crop. But I can relate it with what already has been done, which is very limited, but then I need to mention it. And then, of course, if you don't find anything on that topic, you mention that not much research has been done, and this is what I have found, and I am proceeding from this much of information that's available. So it's totally fine. That it's totally fine that there is not enough information available, but you need to mention that. As long as you're mentioning your points, it's perfectly fine.
हदीका, एक और इंटरेस्टिंग क्वेश्चन ये है कि स्टूडेंट्स बोलते हैं कि वो डेविएट हो जाते हैं। फॉर इंस्टेंस, वो रिसर्च कर रहे हैं और वो पढ़ते पढ़ते कुछ और तरफ निकल जाता है, जैसे इसके वो बहुत फ्रस्ट्रेटिंग हो जाता है। तो उसका क्या सोल्यूशन
है? उसका सोल्यूशन ये है कि have your time set that you would only do your literature review for 2 hours, and in those 2 hours you need to really get your topic. What I do is I usually keep a track of my I follow an app and I keep a track on that, and I have all the headings mentioned. So for example, if I have one broad topic, then I would have subtopics, and that's when I will start my literature. And I will start putting in my literature or my paragraphs from my literature review into those subtopics. So that's why this is one way. People can find other ways as well. So now I would have a set target that I need to finish at least 2 subtopics in those 2 hours. And how many papers can I find? So if you won't have an eventual goal, it's very easy to get distracted. And I find this very interesting, so let's go and check this out, and let's go and check this out. It happens. It's perfectly fine. But try to practice setting a target for your number of papers and reading, and that would help you improve it. At least it helped me improve my distraction. I used to get distracted a lot. So
ओके, हदीका, एक और सवाल ये है कि स्टूडेंट्स जब लिटरेचर रिव्यू कर रहे होते हैं, दिस से कि हम पहले जो है ना वो इंट्रो पढ़ लें और कंक्लूजन पढ़ लें और वहां से जो है ना हम अपनी कंक्लूजन निकाल लें, पूरा पेपर पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं है। तो ऐसा ही
that is the right way. Yes. Because why? Because it saves you time. Because usually topic, when you read the title, वो relative लगेगा, but once you get into the abstract, the first thing is read an abstract. You would get enough information in that abstract. Is it even relevant for me to read the whole paper, or it's not? And for example, when you read an abstract, you would find, I am more interested कि ये method कैसा था. So just go down to the methods. You don't have to go through the introduction and the literature and every step of that paper. Just go down to the methods and read about that. Now, if you would find, okay, in this method, I find it more interesting कि मुझे और depth चाहिए, and then you can go further to the references they have mentioned. So
अच्छा, तो बेस्ट ट्रिक ये है कि हम उनका एब्स्ट्रैक्ट और उनका कंक्लूजन पढ़ लें.
Yes, this is how I do it. It saves you time. It also teaches you how to skim through the literature, because if you have 20 papers, you would not read 20 papers. Our brain is not processed to continue reading for this long and absorb all the information. So just read the abstract, get the relevant information out of the abstract and just write it down. And if you find it कि हाँ ये वाला paper है जिसे मुझे और detail चाहिए, now this is exactly what I'm doing, then read the whole paper. But if you're only picking a portion from the paper, just go through the portion of the paper.
Okay, Hadiqa, next question आता है plagiarism का.
Yes.
कि कितनी plagiarism allowed होती है literature review में भी और overall अगर हम research paper कोई लिख रहे हैं?
Zero plagiarism allowed होती है. Plagiarism is something which is you can say it's illegal if you want to emphasize more on that, because imagine someone else taking credit for your work. That's wrong, right? You wouldn't feel nice about it. So it's someone else who wrote that thing. You cannot rewrite that and call it your work. But there is a way to do it. But then someone would ask, how can I write it? I don't know how to write it. I'm very new to it. So what you do is take that paragraph, you copy paste it in your Word file, but then read it again and then rewrite the sentence one by one. Just break the paragraph down into sentences and then start rewriting it. Okay, I understood this thing from this line. So this is what I would do. I absolutely discourage plagiarism. In fact, in the US, if you are caught for plagiarism, you go to the dean, and the dean can suspend you or do whatever. It's in the dean's control. So it's that serious. It's that serious, at least abroad. But in Pakistan, it's somehow not taken that seriously, and I think it should be, because it's just someone else's work and it's someone else's brain that you're trying to use, and it's called stealing intelligence in a way. So no, plagiarism is not allowed even a %.
Okay, Hadiqa, the next questions we have received is related to paraphrasing. तो paraphrasing हम simple words में करें, किस तरह से paraphrasing की जाए? अगर आपने literature review कर लिया है तो पहले आप अपना introduction लिख रहे हैं तो first चीज आप क्या लिखें, second, third, fourth, और paraphrasing जब आप कर रहे हैं तो उस language किस तरह रखें हम अपनी उसमें?
So it should have the whole paper should have a flow. One title and topic should connect with the other one. But in terms of paraphrasing, let's say if you're submitting to a journal, which is part of Elsevier or Science Direct or something, then those are technical papers. And you have to mention enough technical vocabulary, enough technical parameters to show that you know enough and you have done enough work. It's not a blog post. So this comes the difference between a blog post and a research paper, that you need to have the technical knowledge mentioned in the paper. So within the paraphrasing, start with explaining the background, the reasoning, and then the method used, and even the equation, what equations you have used, and then you come up with the results or data analysis. I think I answered. I think that was
okay.
The
Is there any standard format of writing a research paper?
Yes, so there is a general format to write a research paper, and it includes starting from an abstract. And I would say write the abstract in the very end. It's mentioned in the very beginning, but it's to be written at the very end. You start with introduction, where you give a background, and that background information would have the problem statement that I just mentioned. And following that, you would then mention what has already been done, which is literature review, and then you will connect the literature review with your method. Then the third heading you would say in a paper would be methodology or method and material. So in method and material, you would have what method you are using, the design experiment, and I personally recommend students to make a flowchart. It would make your life easy and the person who is reading it. Make a flowchart, step by step, telling what you have followed. And there are lots of open resources on how to make a flowchart. There's one draw.io. It's a tool to gather whatever type of flowchart you want to make. It just tells them the whole methodology in a very easy manner. So then the methodology, and then after you have the method there, the material portion is, for example, what is the equipment you have used. So all these portions come in the material part. And then you would mention about running the experiments. How many times you have run the experiment, what have you done in the experiment, if it's a computer modeling based or if it's a field work, you mentioned about running them, the years you have run it and all that. Then comes data analysis. So after that, you would mention what results you have gotten from it. For example, if you have done any statistical tests, which we do recommend just to give more authentication to your results. So mention about the statistical test. There can be some outliers, so don't be scared of the results or the data there is. There is no such thing as perfect data everywhere. Even in the countries abroad, we have a lot of gaps, a lot of outliers in the data. So it's perfectly fine to mention those, and you can interpolate those as well. So mention your results, your analysis, and describe your charts, describe your graphs. That comes in the results section. And then comes in discussion. And discussion is the most difficult and the most interesting part of the research paper. Why is that? Because then you would, in discussion section, you link your results with the results that you have studied from the literature. So for example, if the research paper you mentioned is getting 30 as a result and you got 28, so you would do a discussion and compare the numbers, like why mine is 28 and I'm getting an answer of 30 in that one. And then you would mention your possible scenarios why that could be. So this comes in discussion, the reasoning portion comes there. And the last
Hadiqa, you mentioned a lot. Sorry for interrupting you. You have mentioned a lot of headings. So do we need to put headings in our research paper?
You need to know what journal you are submitting to. So every journal has a template, and it has a guide for authors or guide to authors mentioned on their webpage. Download that. It would have a template showing the font size they want, the headings they want, the subheadings they want, the type of figures they want, tables, and all that formatting. So you download that from the website, and then you kind of follow it, or you can even start editing within the template they have given you. And yes, these are the basic 6 to 7 headings that are usually seen in every engineering or science research paper. It could be different for another field, but for science, I have seen the same pattern.
तो आप वो headings बता सकती हैं कि वो कौन सी basic headings हैं जो हर research paper में होती हैं?
Yes. So it starts with abstract. Then either the first heading is background, or usually you say introduction, because you're introducing your field of study and your topic. So introduction, there is no heading of literature review. Literature review comes in introduction. So introduction, materials and method, results and discussion, and the fourth heading can be conclusion or recommendations. So these are the 4 major headings that should be there. And then, of course, the last is
Hadiqa. Yes.
Citation, referencing or citation, the very last portion of the paper.
Hadiqa, मटेरियल रिसर्च कहाँ से किया जाए? कौन सी साइट्स हैं जो आप रिकमेंड करेंगे जब आप लिटरेचर रिव्यू कर रहे हो? तो आप कौन सी साइट्स पे जाएं और वहां से जो है आप रिसर्च पेपर्स पिक करें? Is there any credible site?
Yes, there are search engines. Usually try to go to the authentic ones who have their journals ready. For example, Science Direct. Science Direct is one website you can go to. They have their own set of journals there, and there are open source papers, and then there are those which are non-open source, which means you have to buy the paper to read it. Open source, anyone can read it, but for non-open source, usually what happens is that you use either your university has bought it, or you use the university's Wi-Fi or the university's library access to get to the non-open source papers, and that's how you can download them without. If you're a student, you can download them free of charge. Then people usually start with Google Scholar. If you cannot get access to any of the specific websites, just start with Google Scholar. For a person who doesn't know where to start, Google Scholar. Type Scholar.google and then type the topic, the keywords that you want to work on. For example, if you type water resources or climate change, type that, you would get a whole list of papers that are there. The other thing is you go and click on the most recent ones. So start reading from the ones that got published in 2020 or 2019 and download those. And there's also an option to cite those within Google Scholar. So that's another option. And then you can have PDFs or you can just read them online.
हदीका, वहाँ पे साइटेशंस होती हैं हर रिसर्च पेपर की, तो साइटेशंस को देख के रिसर्च पेपर पढ़ना ज्यादा बेस्ट होता है या आप साइटेशंस के बगैर भी आप पढ़ सकते हैं कि एक रिसर्च पेपर की 100 से अबव साइटेशंस हैं तो ये रिसर्च पेपर बेस्ट है, कोई ऐसा भी क्राइटेरिया है?
I think what you should focus more on is the material of the paper. जरूरी नहीं है कि whatever paper is relevant to you will have the most citation. Yes, it's good if there is more citation, but it shouldn't be the criteria to read the paper. The criteria should be the topic or the material in the paper instead of the number of citations that are there.
हदीका, ये सबसे बेसिक क्वेश्चन है स्टूडेंट्स का कि रिसर्च का टॉपिक नहीं समझ आता कि किस पे रिसर्च की जाए.
Okay. So for undergrads who are now in their final year, जितने भी courses लिए हैं अभी तक, उनमें से whatever you have found interesting, जिसका I would say the Pakistani version of it, जिसका homework copy paste करने का दिल नहीं करता और खुद करने का दिल करता है, that's something that you need to work on. A teacher, a person who motivated you and made you more passionate about this certain topic, and it's easy to find what you're interested in based on whatever you have learned in the past 3 years. So start with that, whatever you like the most in terms of the courses you have studied, and it's perfectly fine if you have more than one. In fact, it's better to have a backup plan. So for example, if in civil engineering, I'm interested in transportation and I'm also interested in water resources, keep both options, try to develop an idea for both the options, hunt for the professor who is interested, and then see if you click with the professor. That is also more important. You need to have good relationship with the professor because he's your mentor who will be there with you more than or equivalent to the amount of time spent with your friends. So the better the relation with the professor, the more you would get out of the research and the knowledge. So that's what I would say. Like these 3-4 factors. Have your favorite courses. Think whichever is more interesting for you, the topic. And it could also, let's say if you have equal passion about 2 different topics. Now that's where the creativity comes in. You can integrate them. Now it's interdisciplinary world. So you can have a combination. Think about how you can combine those 2 topics and have a research out of that. Can I mix water resources with transportation? Yes, maybe I can do drainage on the roads. So something like that. So this could also be done. So
Hadiqa, are you done?
Yeah. Go ahead.
हदीका, जब हम टॉपिक सेलेक्ट कर रहे होते हैं तो स्टूडेंट्स यूजुअली ये सोचते हैं कि वो किसी न्यू आइडिया पे लिखें, तो हम किसी पुराने आइडिया पे भी रिसर्च पेपर लिख सकते हैं क्या?
See, ideas are something that would come when you start working on it. So it can come after reading 8 papers. Okay, oh, this person has done this thing, so maybe I can pick this part of the research. So it doesn't have to be 100% new thing. It could be 10% of something that's already there. So research करने के लिए the basic concept that this is a very common misconception, but it should be absolutely new thing that I'm doing. No, it doesn't have to be. It would be equally counted valuable if you are, like I said initially, it should be addition to the knowledge, right? The knowledge is already there. What are you adding to it? I can give you an example. Just say agriculture. Now, crops are being grown in this world for years and years and centuries, right? So what's new in growing a crop? So what you do is you add something to it. Now everyone grows a crop. There are farmers all over the world growing it. What you do is, oh, can I link something new with agriculture? For example, can I link satellite images that can read my field? So that's an addition. So it doesn't have to be a full-fledged new idea. It can be a little bit of addition, and that would equally be counted. So don't get into the pressure of finding an idea. Just think what you like, and whatever you like, whatever you enjoy more and understand more from the other topics, then go to the next step of what I can do. And talk to your friends, talk to your professors, uh, just have a casual discussion with them, just to get an idea what the future is holding, so you can link with that. For example, now it's more about machine learning and artificial intelligence. So can you add that? Because then it would eventually add value to your career and to your future prospects if you look forward to it.
ओके हदिका, एक क्वेश्चन है डेटा से रिलेटेड. फॉर इंस्टेंस डेटा आप खुद सर्च करें एक्सपेरिमेंटेशन के थ्रू, या आप किसी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से बाय कर सकते हैं?
Now that depends the type of work you are doing. For example, if you are doing, just let me link to the example I gave before. If you're doing an agriculture related work or research, now do you have a field to work on? If you don't have a field to work on, then you can't do much but get data from somewhere else, right? It's totally fine to get data from the organizations, because उनके पास ample amount of data होता है, but those organizations are data collection based, so they don't really analyze everything. That's where the researchers come in. You pick the data that those organizations have, and then you add value to that data. You add research and evidence to whatever the analysis to the data that's already available there. Yeah, so just it's fine getting it from the organization. Now, if you have to buy it, or an organization is just voluntarily giving it to you, those are also two different, and it also comes down to conflicts as well, because especially in Pakistan, organizations, especially government organizations, are not that convenient, and they're not at ease to share the data. So I think the situation is improving and people are working on it. So just get to know the societies or organizations that are ready to share your data. And you need to convince them, share your proposal, convince them what value you will add to the data that's already there. Tell about the marketing that will develop from it. Maybe have them involved in your future project, that if I get to do this research, it could be an industrial project, and then if the organization is interested in funding you for that. So this is another option. So you can get funding from an industry who is already looking for a project, or you just have to either buy it, or which I don't recommend, but or you just negotiate with the organization to gather the data.
Hadiqa, what's the procedure? Like, do we need to write an email, or या हम उनको in person approach करें?
The first thing and the most the professional way would be to approach via email first, and then just don't ask about the data in your very first email. You need to tell that you're a student, you're trying to do this much of research, and the data that you need is linked to this, and if you can set up a meeting with them. So do an email setting up a meeting with them. Even if they're in a different city, try to go there and physically meet them. And just don't ask for, I need data, can you give me? No, nobody would give you, it's food. So have the professional setup to it. Also involve your professor, involve your advisor or your departmental head. That just makes it more valuable.
What if they keep ignoring your emails?
That's when I said that you need to have your professors or department heads in it, because usually people of that level, they know the organization, so they can they can contact them if the student is not getting any response. But I would say first, let the student work on it and don't let the professor take the step. So the student should initiate it, and if there is no response, which is fine because those organizations are fully involved in all other work. So send a reminder, and then if they have a call, if they have a customer care center, or if they have a number that you can call after you have sent the email. But don't get be patient. So be patient,
Okay.
give them time. Start early. If your research is starting in January, start approaching the organization in October or November, because they take their time to respond.
Okay. Anika, there is another question कि fully funded opportunities को कैसे grab किया जाए? Because there are few research papers that are funded by a certain organization. तो उन organizations को कैसे approach किया जाए? या उन opportunity को कैसे grab किया जाए?
So fully funded projects are, I can give you one example. There is National Science Foundation. So National Science Foundation is a foundation that you can go to their website, just Google National Science Foundation, and you would get the next term that they are funding, and they have the topics mentioned as well. You can also check the topics they have funded before. So even if this is good, even if you're looking for a topic that this is the type of area that I want to work on, and these are the topics that NSF is funding or any other funding organization is doing, how they require you to write a grant proposal. A grant proposal has a very different setup than a research paper. It's not a proposal you write for your professor. It's a whole different. It's more elaborative, but what you can do is you can work with your professor to write that grant proposal. The only thing is that you need to start way early. Like if you're in your third year, start hunting for it right now, because they take time to fund you. But once you're funded, then it's all good. Then you get the money from them. You get all the funding to do data collection, to do your experiment, and you do have to report them once in a while. You have to submit either quarterly report or an annual report to that funding agency.
Okay, Anika, Hadiqa, there's another question. It is related to publication. कि हमें publication कहाँ करनी है? Like कौन से journals में publication हो सकती है? Like उनका कोई certain format होता है, उनकी कोई certain demands होती हैं publication के लिए, या paid होती है publication?
So publications, yes, some papers are open source, and every paper has its own format. So you go to that paper, and then you find out कि मुझे ये वाला format follow करना है. Usually they give a template, you just download the template, and you would have their whole guideline on how to do the publication. And there is an index which you kind of take reference of, that tells you the amount of journals that are available in your field, and then which one can you target. So I would not recommend targeting the very like there's a journal, The Nature. It's pretty famous. Everybody reads that one. But you can, if you're an amateur and you're just becoming a researcher, just don't target a very high profile journal. Start with the lower one. Start with conference papers. Start targeting the conferences, the local or regional conferences that are there. That would give you more information on how to refine it, and then you can target the high-end research papers. Go to Elsevier. That's one source where you can find the amount of research papers that are there, or the journals that are there that you can have. So yeah, I think that gives you a highlight of the amount of journals, and every journal will have. So once you're in the website of that journal, then everything is there. The template is there. The guideline is there, the deadlines are there. Usually they don't have very specific and stringent deadlines. It's flexible now, but the whole method is mentioned. They have made it quite easy for you to start with.
ओके हदीका, कुछ क्वेश्चंस हैं हमारे पास लाइव कमेंट्स में. पहला क्वेश्चन है बरीरा मिर्जा का. शी इज वेरी dear friend of mine. She says कि Hadiqa, you are a gem as a senior. Thank you for signing up for online session. Can you please elaborate on how scientific research paper is different from conventional papers?
Scientific research papers would have more technical information. So remember that you are actually giving it to those who are interested in that particular field or who are expert in that particular field. It's their daily work. So it just makes it just in a very layman language. Think of it as a more technical form, and the conventional one, you would write more of a basic language. You would make the language easier for another person to understand. For example, if I have a friend who is an arts major, whereas I'm an engineering one, of course we wouldn't understand each other's technical language. So that's where we differentiate from the scientific to the other one. That if the audience is different, you need to write the language differently.
So basic difference of language ka hai, right?
Right, language, and then of course within the language would also come the material that you're mentioning. Do you want to mention an equation? No, you don't want to mention equation. If someone is doing computer programming, you cannot just mention the codes to a person who just wants to understand your research. So yes, in a broader sense.
Okay, there is another question from Anusha Amanullah. She's asking for the number of papers that one should study for literature review.
I did explain it before as well. So for literature review, the number of papers you need to do are different if you're writing a research paper, and it's different if you're writing a thesis. It's 20 to 30 papers for a thesis or dissertation, which is actually your book that you submit in your college or school. And the research paper, which goes out in the public or a journal, because you don't have enough space, you go for 8 to 10 papers.
Okay. There is another question from Shahrukh Sheikh. He's asking how we are going to assess if data is reliable or not for our work. Reliability of data.
Reliability of data. So one is the source that you're getting the data from. If it's a federal organization, you have to rely on that because there is no other option for you to rely on, right? So the government resources is one authentication. Then I would never recommend you to download the data from anywhere else, or always make sure that once you are sharing the data, you know that you are comfortable and confident to tell the source of the data as well. So that gives you the reliability of it. The second thing is there can always be some mistakes, some ambiguity, some gaps in the data, and that's natural. This will happen. Even let's say if we are getting a data for a flow of river, it won't be super accurate. You can miss out a couple of days, and that's fine. So researchers around the world, the scientists around the world, they know the extent to which the data would be reliable. They're authentic or reliable.
Tariq Ali Basi ka bhi same question yahi tha कि if reliable data is not available there, so how we get reliable data to proceed our research further? Exactly वही आपने इसका जवाब दे दिया है. Maria Khan का question है कि at what point do you think we are ready to propose our research to the institutions to get it funded? For instance, कितना homework करके हमें research institutions के पास जाना चाहिए कि अब आप हमें fund कर दें?
If you're an undergrad, start with your third year. Start a year before. So whenever you have to submit your proposal, whenever you have to approach the institutes that need funding, always keep a check on the deadlines that the funding sources have mentioned, and whatever their deadline is, start a year early. Why? Because this gives you a timeline to review it again, to edit it again, and to refine it more. So a year.
Okay. There is another question from Syed Muhammad Zikriya. Could you please elaborate is how much percentage of data required to complete research paper? मतलब like कितना data required होता है? How to deal with the data limitations? For example, our method is right, but if we get data from unreliable resources, how we can overcome this situation? Especially in Pakistan, it's very hard to get correct and right data. ये पाकिस्तानियों को data का बहुत मसला हो रहा है.
That's true. मुझे भी था मेरे undergrad में मुझे भी data का था, and I can see that the data was actually cooked. It wasn't as accurate. But the point is that you kind of you work with what you get. Especially in the case where you cannot just tell that this is the reliable data. So start working with what you have, and the percentage of data required to complete a research paper varies. If you're working on a weather data, for example, you're working on a climate change paper, the baseline is that you need to have 30 years of data. And if you have 30 years of daily data, that's perfect. That makes it easier for the results to sound more valuable and authentic. But if you don't have it, for example, in my case, I did some research on climate data, and I only had 10 years of weather data. It was only 10 years of temperature. And then there were 25 years of precipitation. Knowing the fact that what area you're working on, do mention that you have worked with whatever you have, and that's the maximum amount of data that was available. So
Hadiqa, Misam Rizvi का इसी तरह का सवाल है. He says कि what to do when data is missing between the years? Is this problem is general or it is specific to our country?
It is general, but it's more in Pakistan. So let's say agar Pakistan में 2 years of data is missing, in US it would be 2 days. So, but there is data that's missing here and there. So it's a general problem. But what you do is then, because it's a general problem, there are scientific solutions to it. There is a thing called interpolation to interpolate the data. And then within interpolation, there are different methods. And then you pick a method which type of interpolation you need to do to fix the data or to fill in the gap. For example, if data for 2018 is missing, you use the data for 2019 and 2017 to fill in the in-between section. That's how
10 years या 5 years का data missing हो, उसके लिए भी interpolation हो सकती है क्या?
I would not recommend 10 years or 5 years. I would rather say just keep the gap there and do the analysis for the before section and after section. 10 years is a huge gap. So for a year or a couple of months, that's fine, but not for 10 years.
Nagina Makhtoon, she's asking, Ma'am Hadiqa, can you please give some guidelines about international paper publications?
Like I said, just start by knowing what papers you want to what journals you want to publish in, and then those journals will have the templates, and read papers from that journal. So you would get an idea the type of work that people have presented, how much of the work they are doing in that. So that will give you a hint about how much work I need to do to make it to a level of an international journal. Of course, it's way more. Because the reviewers are harsher. I wouldn't say harsher, but I would say they are way more technical. So they're experts. So they want to make sure that the paper that you're publishing is good enough. And to make it good enough, you need to start by reading what's already being published in that journal.
Okay, we have a question from Shoaib Ahmed. He says, Hi Hadiqa, share about your first paper. What was the motivation that made you write it? What is the significance of mentorship in research? ये बहुत ज़बरदस्त सवाल है कि mentorship की कितनी significance है?
Right, like I said, mentorship is something that you would take with you throughout your life afterward. For me, my mentor who taught me, it was Dr. Imran, you would know. So he's the person who made me what I am right now, what I am today. And because he set my base, that's why I'm able to proceed and initiate whatever I do right now. So mentorship is, like I said before, make sure you have a good relation with your professor. It's so important. Whether you're doing an undergrad or master's or a PhD, it's very important to have good mentor, to have a person who is guiding you, who is there for you. You can bug him, and you wouldn't be hesitant enough to ask any question from that mentor.
और मारिया
For
खान का क्वेश्चन भी इसी से रिलेटेड है कि where should a
Mhm.
person with no mentorship or previous experience go for publishing his research? मतलब कोई mentor ही नहीं है तो फिर क्या करे?
So usually in your life span, you kind of get inspired by some people. A mentor is someone you look forward to if you're stuck somewhere. कि मुझे समझ नहीं आ रहा where to, like, what can I do in this thing? And the person that comes in your mind that I can ask this person and the person would genuinely help me out. That's where you see your mentorship happening. Mentor is not someone who is only a professor. It could be another person from another field. And the idea is to give you a guide, be a guide, a person who can guide you to the right step. That, and then of
So
course for technical mentorship you need a professor.
और मेंटोरशिप के लिए जो आप मेंटोर सेलेक्ट करें उसके जो है प्रोफेशनल लिंक्स भी अच्छे होने चाहिए ताकि आपको एक्सेस मिल सके अच्छे जर्नल्स और
That
इंडस्ट्री
is
में,
true.
राइट?
A good professor would have a good and active professor who is actively involved in what's happening around and within the research component. So a good professor would build up your profile in terms of linking you to the industry, linking you to the other professors or other universities, and that will help you to create your career in the future. Like the person would push you to go ahead and present, go ahead and do this conference. There is this thing coming up, let's do it. So you need that passion and motivation to keep yourself going. And
Okay,
it can come from a professor, it can also come from a friend.
Hadiqa, you have already answered so many questions. हम सिर्फ लास्ट क्वेश्चन ले रहे हैं शाहरुख शेख का. What are the
Mhm.
major sources for water related data online for our region? Sources क्या हैं water
Pakistan?
related data की? Yeah, region के लिए,
Okay.
हमारे region के लिए.
So water related resources are, let's say if you want irrigation data, you need to, there is Department of Irrigation. There is one office they have in Hyderabad. I have visited those offices. So you go there, like I said, generate an email, find the best thing in Pakistan would work if you find a resource or a person who can give you a reference to the office or something. That's how it works, basically. It just makes it easier. So if you know someone who knows someone and who knows someone, that makes things way easier. So find that. Find that. So I would say Department of Irrigation for finding data on flow of the rivers, and we have barrages. There is daily data available on those. How we did was we approached those people. We approached the Sindh I think it was Kotri Barrage. Yes, it was Kotri Barrage. People who were very genuinely interested and they were quite positive about sharing the data. So we do have resources who do that. Plus, let's say if you want, and yes, so the barrage people would have data for the flow. You can get the weather data, which is also related to the water resources portion. You get the weather data from PND, which is Pakistan Meteorological Department. They collect the data for cities of the country.
You hear me?
Hello?
Yeah. Continue, please.
Yeah, I think I was done with the
We are
question.
still live.
Yeah, I'm saying I was done with answering the question that the resources you need to know about the data collection. So PMD, Barrage, the Department of Irrigation, they would have the flow data, and then you can compile them together.
Okay, Hadiqa, thank you so much for your time. Initially, we planned it for 30 minutes, but now, but
It went for
we
an
extended
hour.
it.
That's fine, and I'm glad I'm able to answer the questions. It's fine if it went ahead with more.
Hadiqa, लास्ट क्वेश्चन ये कि अगर कोई आपको अप्रोच करना चाहे फॉर मेंटोरशिप, तो लाइक आप would you do that in simple words?
Yes, I would do that. I have been doing it. So of course, if someone wants to approach me, they can definitely do it. I can share my email with them. I'm also I've started a consultancy. So
Okay.
which is a combination of helping you out with study abroad and then helping you out with research, thesis, presentations, and your essay writing and all. So within that consultancy, I help students out, and you can definitely approach me. I can share the details about the website, the link, and everything, and I would be happy to help the students out for all the questions out.
That's really great. मतलब like हम कमेंट सेक्शन में आपकी वेबसाइट का लिंक भी अटैच कर देंगे और आपका ईमेल एड्रेस भी, जो भी इंटरेस्टेड स्टूडेंट्स हैं वो आपसे कांटेक्ट कर लें. थैंक यू सो मच हदीका, और हम आपको दोबारा भी इंशाल्लाह इनवाइट करेंगे, और ताकि हमारे जितने भी स्टूडेंट्स हैं वो आप मजीद जो है वो आपके एक्सपीरियंस एंड नॉलेज से फैसिलिटेट हो सकें. और आप कुछ कहना चाहेंगे एनडीसीसी के बारे में?
NDCC, okay, so when I saw National Dialogue on Climate Change, I was quite impressed, especially with the name. So I would say that this is something we need, and I'm looking forward that this platform turns out to be having a major impact within the climate change scenario, that especially for Pakistan, because one thing is awareness that's lacking in the public. So the students can be the source to spread the awareness about climate change and take the initiatives and the steps about it. So I think this platform, NDCC, would become one of the major and identified platform to take that step. That would be great.
Thank you
I look
so
forward
much
to see that.
Yeah, we'll surely invite you soon. Thank you so much, Hadiqa.
Thank you
See
so
you
much.
soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you for your work. Thank you. Bye.
Office.